Thank you, Mrs. Speaker. I rise to respond to the highly politicized budget speech presented by the Honorable Dr. Ashni Singh. Before I proceed to address the disrespect meted out to the Guyanese people, decency and cordiality demand that I make a few initial acknowledgments. I stand here firmly on the shoulders of the support I continue to receive from my family and those who continue to encourage me to keep up the good work, and those who have reposed confidence in me to execute this noble duty. Mr. Speaker, it is not lost upon us that we are still in the middle of a deadly pandemic. In recognition of this sad reality, I hereby extend my sincerest condolences to all Guyanese families which have lost loved ones to COVID-19. In that same breath, Mr. Speaker, I extend special recognition to the men and women who protect us every day. I extend great appreciation to the public servants who have worked tirelessly to complete the technical work that produces a budget. Your efforts are hereby recognized and appreciated. To our soldiers, our police officers, our firefighters, our policemen and women, and all of the honorable professionals within the security sector, and all the frontline workers, I say to you, hold firm. The coalition will be back to deliver the good life. Mr. Speaker, the commitment of these workers, their sacrifices, their constant daily struggles are not acknowledged, let alone be rewarded by this very uncaring government. It is quite regrettable that the first oil budget has failed to deliver something to them that will make them feel as if they are working in sectors that reside in an oil and gas republic. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2022 has not made any recognition of the kind of heroism that is on display daily by the men and women in the security sector, but they can rest assured that the coalition will not stop until we are returned to government to continue the good work to deliver a good life. We will be returning to government very soon, and I say that with absolute conviction once there is a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, this nation has had the displeasure to be subjected to 5 long hours of verbal assault on the poor and working class of this nation. Budget 2022 should have been a technical presentation by a technocrat minister with the best interests of the nation at heart. But, Mr. Speaker, instead, what was delivered was a political tirade rooted in misinformation and revisionist history, with a callous disregard for facts and truth. Mr. Speaker, I specifically allude to the opening section of this budget, and I specifically allude to paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. In this section of the honorable member's presentation, there was a blatant disregard for reality, and the verbal stench should not be allowed to linger for another second in these honorable halls. The honorable member stated, democracy prevailed and pessimism replaced optimism. But, Mr. Speaker, No amount of political rhetoric can wash away facts. Democracy did not prevail, sir, and installation prevailed. Our constitution was disrespected, and the optimism which the honorable member speaks of shall remain a fleeting illusion. The will of the people, I will maintain, was dashed and it was smashed. Wake up, Honorable Member Ben. But, Mr. Speaker, the great thing about a democracy is that you can run, but you can't hide. An election awaits you. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention to the public security sector. It is well established that there can be no security if the people cannot afford to eat. There can be no security if endemic poverty persists. We cannot feel secured in our homes if a bag of tennis roll with 5 in a bag is almost $500, Mr. Speaker. And the price of a pound of plantain remain outside the reach of the poor. Mr. Speaker, we cannot boast of public security when the elites and those in government circles are the only ones sipping on champagne while the rest of the population cannot find lunch to put in the lunch kits of their children. If the intellectual artists had considered the aforesaid, they would have not produced this budget. There can be no security if a small section of the society is the only beneficiary of the wealth available in an average country. Mr. Speaker, public security begins and it ends with addressing the everyday survival needs of the people. In this regard, sir, the allocation of $47.9 billion towards public safety in budget 2022 will mean little if we do not address the starvation, suffering, and economic carnage which has been brought about by the mismanagement of the economy of the PPPC administration. Mr. Speaker, you cannot achieve public security only with guns, dogs, barbed wire fence, drones, helicopter, and personnel. These efforts must be coupled with strenuous efforts to deal with endemic poverty and the suffering of the people. And the studies have shown, sir, and I would lay over everything that I quote today, and the studies have shown that as much as 50% of the prison population are typically from the bottom 20% of the income ladder. This is why we have recommended that there be an increase in the income tax threshold from $75,000 to $125,000. Are you listening to me, Honorable Ben?
Honorable member, you know, you should quote the source, then you can quote the particular and lay over, because I'm quite familiar with quite a few of the studies. And the other thing is, I'm getting a bit confused. The honorable member Don Hastings said 100,000. Now the proposal is 125.
This is my recommendation,
Okay.
sir.
But your recommendation.
And I'm quoting from the
Thanks.
Brookings Institute.
Thank you.
And like I said, everything that I quote today, I have it here to lay over this afternoon. It is important, Mr. Speaker, to fight rising cost of living and to fight the bitter poverty that so many Guyanese face. Sir, I say this, the security apparatus of a nation represents that basic working definition of security. but it also includes those sections which are not necessarily seen as primary security mechanisms. For example, we may consider the Ministry of Agriculture to be an essential part of Guyana's security apparatus. But when we think of it, one thinks of food security as a part of the concept of security. That view would automatically change. So, what I'm saying, sir, and I quote here, and like I've said, I'm going to lay over everything that I quote from. The Center for Strategic and International Studies note that national security is food security. And they have also noted, which I quote, sharp increases in global food prices in 2007 and 2008 has jolted global political leaders out of any sort of complacency they might have had. Uh, they might have had regarding the future of food and agriculture. Street demonstrations and food riots broke out in more than 40 countries across the world, provoking unrest and violence in several places. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a deep understanding of what public security constitutes. If we don't deal with the high food prices, we cannot boast about public security. And I've seen, sir, and I've had a read of the budget over the last couple of days, and I will say that I'm not seeing anything from the Ministry of Home Affairs which suggests that the government has reimagined the public security sector in the age of oil. Mr. Speaker, Guyana continues to witness the importation of death trap vehicles, some more than 20 years old. And they're fitted with used tires, which this uncaring government has allowed. These vehicles are not only a drain on our foreign exchange to import parts, but they also bring significant safety concerns to our citizens. And I see my honorable friend is acknowledging this. So, Mr. Speaker, Guyanese have also witnessed the deterioration in road safety. And there must be a national approach and the engagement of all stakeholders in an effort to combat this situation. And I don't think that the Honorable Minister Ben gets any of this, anything of what I'm saying. So, Mr. Speaker, it is often said that the opposition only criticizes and they offer no alternative options. And we are well aware of the ploy to steal our ideas and learn to govern from us. Nonetheless, oftentimes we must propose ideas, especially if they are taken on board in the interest of the people of Guyana. So, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of that service, here is a proposal coming from the government in waiting. There should be an immediate formation of an inter-ministerial committee on public security. This committee, Mr. Speaker, should include the Minister of Finance, Minister of Social Protection, the Minister of Home Affairs, the Minister of Agriculture, among so many others. This committee, sir, will signal the recognition that public security needs a multi-dimensional intervention in these unprecedented times of relentless crimes. Sir, there has to be an acknowledgement that public security is not restricted to heavy-handed enforcement, but it involves a very holistic approach. So, Mr. Speaker, please note that according to the World Population Review in 2021, Guyana was in the top 10 in the world for crime. And I say that this is totally unacceptable. Further, Public security in the age of an oil and gas economy has to be reimagined and reflect our newfound reality. Sir, it cannot be limited to same old, same old. The times are different. We are on the big stage, and we must recognize that this will not exempt us from security threats. Mr. Speaker, as a result, Guyana must modernize its security apparatus. We must, sir, we must protect the nation's emerging oil and gas industry from threats which have the potential to disrupt the value chains of industry and thus the economic base of the country. Mr. Speaker, I am not convinced that Budget 2022 understands this. I am not convinced that the ministry nor the Minister of Home Affairs has the basic appreciation for these facts. This is the reason that I propose an inter-ministerial committee on public security. It is that serious. Don't hold your head in shame, Mr. Ben. Mr. Speaker, public security also constitutes human rights. Dr. Bertrand Ramcharan, and I will circulate the article, put the issue this way, and I quote, "The link between security and human rights is important. This link is reinforced if we consider that human rights define human security." What the learned gentleman is saying, Mr. Speaker, is that you cannot have the execution of husbands in their beds while they sleep and young boys decapitated without any justice and boast of the achievement of public security. Mr. Speaker, justice for the Henry boys are in Boston, and all those who have been subjected to extrajudicial killings under this government must be of highest priority if public security will be achieved. Mr. Speaker, I have, over the last 18 months, I've visited depressed communities, and I've walked among the poor and the powerless. And they have told me very harrowing stories about how their basic rights were denied. And I spoke with several young men and women who have described how the police use their powers to arrest them without any cause. And they also violate their constitutional protection of the 72 hours limit. And they've also spoke about being beaten for no reason. Mr. Speaker, these developments stir insecurity. When this seething anger reaches to its boiling point, no one is safe. The continuing series of intimidatory actions and violence against powerless women and unlawful seizure of their personal belongings by errant members, and I emphasize the word errant members of the Guyana Police Force, leaves very, very much to be desired. Mr. Speaker, no government can crack down on the freedom of speech and use the entire security apparatus to chase down its cartoon character and expect a secure society. Since August 2nd, 2022, Guyanese have lost the basic fun indulgence of speaking their minds on social media. We cannot, even I cannot post on Facebook in peace because the government's cybersecurity teams are scouting our page. They're scouting the page of ordinary Guyanese to abuse the Cybercrime Act. And we're well aware of the argument which suggests that this act was introduced by the APNU AFC. And this is a fact. And what I say, sir, is that this is a fact. This act was introduced by the APNU AFC, but it was not intended to chase down Mudwater and others. It was intended to stop child pornography, the sharing of nudes without permission, and the use of electronic devices for terrorist activities. It was never envisaged to be used to protect thin-skinned snowflakes in the government from emotional abuse and trauma because they are subject to public critique and ridicule. We call on the government to stop abusing the Cybercrime Act. We want to return to the simple pleasure of posting our views, our candid views on social media in a very candid way and in a very responsible way also. So as I speak, Mr. Speaker, if we are to take a look at social media, nobody is posting about these debates in a manner in which they did during the 2015-2020 era. They are fearful that they might emotionally abuse a member of the government, and this is a fact. During the administration of Granger, social media was a buzz. Freedom of speech was alive and it was well. I know people, and I know close family friends, they have signed off of Facebook for fear of being arrested for some posts. And some of my colleagues here have also signaled to me that they intend to sign off. But, sir, what I'm saying here is that we now live in an Orwellian society. Big Brother is watching every post, every status, and every social media upload. The only solution, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that you have your ID cards waiting and ready to return the APNU AFC government to power so that we can return to the glory days of freedom of speech. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, you simply cannot trample on the human rights of your political opponents by denying them their basic rights to counsel. And you stand here and you talk about public security and you preach about public security. If for the 4.7 billion allocated in this budget is not spent to resolve what I've just mentioned, sir, we are simply throwing this money in the winds. Guyanese are living in fear and their human rights are not being honored by the government, and this is your legacy. When you leave very shortly, this will be your legacy. Thus, Mr. Speaker, we are severely affected where security is concerned. One must recognize that if the oil and gas sector does not operate in a manner that protects or consider the environment or the impact of climate change, this could present a threat to the security of the citizens of Guyana. Hence, Mr. Speaker, there is a need for the security apparatus to be prepared for any eventuality. And like I've said earlier, sir, we just simply have to reimagine our security sector. We live in a country where about 80% of our population, we live on 10% of land. And it is for this reason that when we were in government, the APNU AFC government, we embarked on the regionalization of the country by creating several capital towns. Why this was done? This was done to make other regions livable and to decrease the dependency on strictly life on the coast. This is a grand vision. This is what distinguishes us from our colleagues on the other side. Budget 2022 did not envision these things in the context of public security. What they think about is the next hustle. But what we on this side think about is of long-term benefits to the nation. Public security, sir, is not about bells and buttons and whistles. And we ask, stop using the security apparatus to chase down mudwater and get down to serious business. Somebody was showing me an article there that there is a prison break. Is that what you've said to me, colleague? There is a prison break. Get down to that. Stop chasing mudwater. And I call on you, like I've done 3 times ago, to reimagine our public security. Importantly, if the oil and gas economy does not result in equitable distribution of resources, this could spark social unrest and by extension provide a major risk to the security of the country. Professor Lawrence cautioned, and I quote, "A concern for ruling classes throughout the world must be the potentially destabilizing effects of inequality, resulting in more than simply their governing parties losing election. Civil wars, revolutions, and terrorist incidents are possible outcomes of inequalities." End of quote. So, Mr. Speaker, the literature on this subject is abundantly clear as it relates to the issue of security. It is much more than guns, uniforms, and troops. Insofar as this is concerned, the literature is very extensive. As early as the 1990s, theories and theses have noted the great benefits and the results of black gold. Terms such as oil curse, paradox of plenty, and the Dutch disease have been made popular because they have been proven to be true over and over again. And Mr. Speaker, Guyana we cannot escape proving these theories to be true if the security apparatus does not modernize to deal with the challenges of this industry. I now turn my attention to the police force, fire service, and prison services. And Mr. Speaker, I say that all efforts to restore and preserve law and order at all levels of the society will be rendered useless if the government continues on the destructive path of wanton politicization of the security services. And I say this, sir, and I say this to my most honorable colleague on the other side of the House. My personal research has uncovered massive disaffection among the disciplined services. Some have pleaded with me, and some that you see walking across there that looks at you in the eye, they have pleaded with me to use this budget speech to highlight their plight. And I give my word to them, and I hereby honor my commitment to them because I'm raising this issue here. The men and women in uniform, they have complained that their rank no longer matters, Mr. Speaker. Junior ranks are refusing to heed instructions because they boast about having connections to the big politicos. Ranks are being accused of being sympathetic towards the opposition, and they're being sidelined for this. Professional officers are not seeing the point of furthering their studies or going beyond the call of duty. And promotion is no longer based on merit. Promotion is based on perceived loyalties. The structure of the Guyana police force have been dashed, and this is a reality. No amount of heckling can change this fact. The members of the Guyana police force are demoralized. If they were not demoralized, they would not have reached out to me. They would not have reached out to any of us on the members of the opposition side, crying, calling for help. The 4.9 billion allocated to Guyana police force will mean little if the political interference remains. The $120 million allocated to ranks for training will enter the political fray, and ranks will be selected based on loyalties and connections. Honorable members, this is a reality.
Honorable Minister, the reality is you'll need an extension. Honorable Member, Honorable Minister, go ahead, Chief Whip.
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable members, you see, so this is the day of elevation. I heard one person referring to a president and so. Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In essence, what I'm trying to say is that we must fix the low morale and political interference. As part of the $400 million allocated to rebuild the breakdown police station, part of it should go towards an inquiry, any sort of inquiry into that mysterious fire. You cannot simply rebuild without answer. So it is in this context, sir, that I say that you can allocate millions, billions, zillions, but it will make absolutely no sense. Ranks will not respond to calls to provide protection for the citizenry if there's no guarantee that their efforts will be rewarded and recognized. And this is a reality. If you go on the ground and speak to them, you will see that this is indeed a reality. The low morale permeates the entire discipline forces. The $795 billion allocated for the construction of the police station, I would say, sir, it is a very good thing. If there's something good in the budget, I'll point it out. And I say this is a good thing. Who would argue with that? However, Mr. Speaker, you could construct the largest police station, but if the men and women within those stations are not comfortable and they are in fear of politicization, there can be absolutely no progress. The firefighters are still upset about the promotion list being subjected to political directions. The nation has never seen this level of mysterious fire. It seems every day there is a fire. Fire comes, places burn down to the ground. The minister inserts himself in all the ongoings and make loose allegations. There are no public reports, and we wait for the next fire and the next round of allegations and the conclusions by the Minister of Fireology. Mr. Speaker, it pains me to see that every time there is a fire, the minister reaches on the scene before the fire service, professionals, and even attempt to direct who should hold the hose. Sir, this is gross incompetence, and the micromanagement of the highest order is indicative of the political interference. So I say to you to take your feet off of the necks of the professional men and women. Let the public service system work, and professionals will emerge. And I assure you, professionals will emerge based on merit, and the right people will be in the right place. So you won't have to leave your office dripping in sweat and incompetence at every fire scene. Allow the systems to work. End the political interference. The 2021 budget allocated $120 million for the installation of 139 fire hydrants. Yet we continue to see fire daily. This year, $100 million has been allocated. Should we expect an improvement or more of the same? This government, sir, simply fails to understand the concept of the development of human capital. It is not all good and well to only focus on infrastructure and to throw money at every problem. You must focus on the morale of the professionals who occupy those buildings. And we're happy to see that the APNU AFC Safe Security Program has received the sum of 2.5 billion. We are elated that the government has had no choice but to continue what we have started. Our only concern rests with the fact that based on the modus operandi, we cannot say that the cameras will be used for crime fighting. Mr. Speaker, 120 million has been budgeted for trading of ranks, and I urge the Honorable Minister to ensure that the ranks are trained on the SOPs to deal with high-speed chase. There must be risk assessment and clear SOPs of risk and chase. And let us learn from yesterday's tragic accident. This is a request that I've received from the people of Region 5 and 6. In conclusion, sir, I will say that I cannot go on record supporting any measure that hurts Guyana badly. I will simply not be a part of the destruction for generations to come. As a consequence, I cannot support the budget in its current form. However, I recognize that we on this side of the House will continue to talk as much as we are allowed to, but the government will continue what they want to do. But the only solution lies in an election. So I say to my Guyanese brothers and sisters who are listening to us, get ready. Get ready to exercise your powerful franchise and let us stop the destruction of our country. And it starts first with a clean voters list. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.